one of the things that's become clear also is that the balance between the governance and management, senior management, particularly those elected to apparently serve us, and those who are the long-standing and long-lasting bureaucracies of local government, has tended to err in favour of the latter. And there is a frustration felt by many, including people who've talked to the show who are elected officials, at their lack of ability to influence policy or to hold to account chief executives and senior bureaucrats in their particular bailiwick. In addition, the way in which councils are elected has meant that probably most people listening to this couldn't A, afford to stand, or B, stand or have the time to stand for local government in this country. A plethora of workshops, committee meetings, briefings, confidential or otherwise, have meant that the time demands upon people who want to serve and who seriously are community leaders in their own right is denied because they simply can't find the time to be a councillor in this country, or a councillor and have a full-time job, look after children, or serve their community in other ways. Well, running himself into that maelstrom, I have to say, is our next guest, Stuart Smith, a national member of parliament. He was first elected for the Kaikoura electorate, I think, in 2014. He is the senior whip of the National Party. Oh gosh, I remember those. They're actually quite benign, really, despite their names as a general rule. And the chief government whip. He's introduced a private members bill aimed at seeking to address at least some of the issues that I've talked to you about. Now, he joins us now. Stuart, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here, and I agree with a lot you just said earlier about local government.
Thank you. Unfortunately, having served in it myself, I sort of know from the inside and I guess you too, having dealt with them in your earlier guys before you became an MP too. Listen, Stuart, just before we carry on to the private members bill you're going to introduce, Chief, do you have any recalcitrant backbench MPs that you'd like to get rid of, like, well, my senior whip had me?
Not in my party, and the other ones I don't have any. But it's a very interesting role, and it's much wider than I expected. Even though I've been an MP for 10.5 years.
Yeah, I guess one of your jobs, apart from just working out prosaic things like who can go on leave and who can't, you've got to have the numbers in the house, although it's not as urgent as it used to be. But is just the well-being, is it, of your members of parliament as well, the personal crises and family stresses that they face during their time in parliament?
Yes, in fact, I've just come from speaking to the Parliamentary Business Trust, where there's a number of young business people about the role of whip, with alongside the Labor whip, Chief Whip Glenn Bennett. Yeah, the pastoral care is a large aspect of it, managing the staff issues that occur from time to time, and also having oversight of the budgets and expenditure of our MPs. But the primary role of a government whip, and I'm senior government whip, is to ensure we have the numbers to pass legislation. So that's managing leave for everybody except for the Prime Minister.
Do you, given the fact that you don't actually have to go through, do you have to still go through the eyes and the nose lobbies now, or only for conscience issues?
Only conscience issues or personal votes, yes. And in that case as well, we have proxy votes. And so the whips from each party will cast proxy votes for those that did not attend the vote personally.
Ah,
That's
okay.
if they choose to vote. They don't have to.
So, do you need a quorum in the House still these days?
Not a quorum as such. You need a minister in the House, or the House collapses after 10 minutes. But we keep enough MPs in the House to cover all those sorts of things, and generally have two ministers in the House. So one needs a bathroom break. We don't collapse the
Oh, I
House.
see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Ah, the arcane nature of Parliament hasn't changed. That's good. Listen, you've introduced a private members bill. It's called the Local Government Management of Local Authorities Amendment Bill, which is really quite a large title when you think about it. But it's now officially in the ballot. It hasn't been drawn yet, as I understand, or has it been drawn?
No, it hasn't been drawn. And just for clarity, um, I can call it what I like to a certain extent. Once it gets into the process of being drafted, the clerk's office has a say in naming the bill so that it fits with standing orders and doesn't breach those. So
That's
I
all
didn't
right. No, I was
exactly.
just, yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure, yeah, the clerk, God, those are fussy people. But the purpose of this bill, it says, is to provide elected mayors and councillors with the mandate to more effectively govern and control the activities of their local authority. Now, that would suggest that you think there's a problem at the moment with elected mayors and councillors not having a mandate to effectively govern and control the activities of the authorities that they are elected to serve and lead.
Well, it's in the legislation actually that really all the power sits with the chief executive. And I want to change that so that uh, the people that are elected by the people, our councillors, have the have rights and responsibilities more akin to a company director under the Companies Act, which is much more prescriptive about where power sits. Now, if you want an example of why that would be the case, we've had we've had councillors who can't get information out of their council. They've had to use the local government information act or the official information act for local government to get information from their executive, which is crazy. And it's quite outside how a company would run for those reasons. Now, not saying companies are the best thing, but I think that's the best um, legislation example of how it should run. And in fact, um, it turned out, I called Dr. Oliver Hartwich from the New Zealand Initiative about my members bill, and I told him about it a long time ago. He said, "Oh, I thought you were ringing me to congratulate me about, thank me for putting it in there, making local government work report, because that's one of the recommendations." And they got the idea from my members bill, and so that's a recommendation in their report. So it was quite and sort of a thrill, really, to see it being recognised in such a weighty report.
The reality is, you say, unelected chief executives wield considerable power over council operations and the flow of information to elected members, in what some have described as a democratic void leading to tension and dysfunction. Were you thinking of any particular councils when you made that comment?
Well, the Carterton District Council comes to mind, where an elected councillor who ran on a platform of fiscal responsibility was barred from participating in the long-term plan deliberations because he expressed views that were consistent with his own electorate election promises when thinking about that plan. Well, that's just completely unacceptable in my view. In Parliament, we're not banned from voting because we express views that are contrary to a piece of legislation. In fact, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. And I guess, the other thing is um, that chief executives have to be forced utilising to give the Official Information Act to give information to elected members. That would suggest, wouldn't it, that, and I have to say, it wouldn't just be Carterton, and you could run that all over New Zealand, as you probably know, Stuart. That would suggest that local government's broken, really, isn't it?
Uh, well, I hasten to add that not all chief executives are guilty of not doing what they really should, but the point is there's potential for them to do that, and we need to change that. I think the point you made earlier about a full-time job in council is something I've long thought about with councils. In days gone by, a long time ago, admittedly now, it was most council meetings were held in the evenings.
Correct.
and wasn't a full-time job.
Yep.
And if you think about some of the largest businesses in New Zealand that have a board, the board members would not have to give up most of them don't have a full-time job, but it's not a full-time job being a board member of a large company with much greater assets and much bigger problems than councils have to deal with. So
Agreed.
it really is not a governance role. It's become a working committee role. And I think that's wrong and it needs to change. But that's not part of my bill.